So from the last video, I have all of these scraps, and these scraps we're going to use for future projects. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to them and squish them up together. Okay. Squeeze them into a ball. And see, there's all that extra clay that we thought we were going to use, but we really don't need. And I'm going to put this back in the bag because I want it to stay nice and hydrated for the next time I work with it. Okay, let's get back to our sculpture mug. Now that we have our correct size and we have our nice rolled rim, we're going to do something called a beveled cut. Okay, a beveled cut. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to remove on the short sides, we're going to remove a corner here, flip it over lengthwise, and then do it again to the other side. So I have a larger example that'll help you understand. So this is a large piece of furniture foam. And let me zoom this out so you guys can see. So I've got this piece of furniture foam, and it is kind of rectangular. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to cut off just the corner of a slab right here, and then we're going to cut off the other corner of a slab. So what we'll end up with is a parallel line here, a parallel line here, and then these two bevel cuts, 1 and 2, are going to end up being parallel. Okay, so they're, my hands didn't really show it, but so we're essentially cutting our slab into a parallelogram, for those of you that are remembering our math classes. So we're going to be just removing the edges, so that way it's a slant both directions that go in the same way. So let's take a look at how this works. Give me a minute and I'm going to zoom in on this process. Okay. So I'm going to take my little knife tool, support the bottom of your slab with your thumb, hold your tool at an angle, okay, and we're just going to cut the corner off. So now it's a bevel cut. It's not a straight up and down cut. Okay, it's not super angled to where I've got a huge piece. It's about a 45-degree angle, and you'll be left with a little piece like this. And if you set it on the table, it'll look like a little triangle. All right, then I'm going to pick up my slab, and I'll show you the flip, because the flip is important. I'm going to pick it up from the opposite end, hand underneath, hand on top. Remember, we respect our slabs. Lift and lay down. Okay. From there, I'm going to go ahead and bevel cut the other side. Okay. And there's my triangle. I set that down and set that down. Okay, I've got my two corners I've removed from my slab. All right, I'm going to grab my toothpick tool. It's attached to a pencil, and I'm going to start scoring my bevel cuts. Scoring is like scratching into the clay, and you want to do not just one direction, you want to do both directions. So like a hashtag. So you're going to make hashtag marks. Lots and lots and lots. We're going to gently lift and flip. And we're going to make hashtag marks on the other side. Okay. All right, next up, we're going to add some slip. And slip is just water plus the clay that you're using. And it's like a it's like a yogurty consistency. Mine got dry, so I had to add water to it, and now it needs to be stirred. So I'm just going to use my finger to stir, because that's going to work faster than anything else. Okay, so mine's a little bit thinner than I'd like for slip to be, but that's all right. It's always good to have slip on hand, guys. Make sure that you've got your slip ready to rock and roll. So I'm going to take my slip, and I'm just going to use my finger and just dab it on. You can use the paintbrush if you want to. I don't mind getting dirty. This is my happy time. I like playing in the mud. Makes me happy. Makes me happy. Okay, so I've slipped that. I'm going to just wipe my finger off a little bit. And I keep a bucket of water near my workstation so I can very quickly and easily wash my hands. And then I wear an apron so I just dry my hands on the apron. It's faster. A towel will work too. I'm going to lift. I don't care about getting slip on the table because I can clean it up and flip. I'm going to add a little bit of slip here. And if you're worried about your connection, you can always do a double score. So you take your tool and you go back and you score again through the slip, and that will ensure that it's really worked in there and it's going to make a super, super strong connection. Okay, last thing you want is your piece to fall apart. Okay, next we're going to ask the clay to bend. And I do say ask. We're not going to force the clay. Okay, if you force the clay, it will break on you. You need to ask the clay to move, and we ask gently with our hands. So this is my flat bottom edge, and this is my really nice rolled rim. I'm going to flip it up, gently, 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 lift it up, put it on its bottom edge, and just give it a slight curve, just enough so it can stand on its own. I'm going to go ahead and make a circle-ish shape with my hands, supporting the walls. I'm going to gently lift and place, lift and place. And every time I lift, I'm squeezing in just little bits, okay? Don't try to move everything super quickly because that's how you end up breaking your work. Okay, so now I'm a lot closer, and I'm going to just like push in with my fingers to try to get that cylindrical shape. Okay, so I'm pretty close. I've made a little bit of a mess on my table, so I'm going to just use my credit card rib and scrape it off, and maybe my sponge, and make sure I've got a clean work surface. If you clean as you go, it's a lot easier to clean up at the end. So I'm going to clean as I go. I've got a clean surface now. Okay, this next part is all about connecting these pieces together. So this can get a little bit complex. We're going to do a zoom in on this. So when you're connecting these two beveled cuts, if you connect them exactly onto each other, this becomes a really, really weak point. We don't want to connect them exactly. We want to connect them just slightly overlapped. So I'm going to put the bottom of this slab to the center here. So we're going to try to connect to the center points of those slabs. So I've got kind of the middle of this rim and the middle of this rim, okay, the thickness. And I'm going to connect just like this. Boom. Okay, you see how there's an overlap? The bottom of each slab is in the middle of the other one. Okay, and then I'm going to just very gently add some compression. I will blend in a minute. I just want that to tack in place. I'm going to gently put my hands around the cylinder. I'm not squeezing. I'm putting just enough pressure that my hands make contact, and the friction from the wetness of the clay and my hands will be enough to lift it. Notice how the shape of the slab doesn't change at all. The shape of the cylinder doesn't change. I'm not squeezing. So I'm going to lift and flip. And you see how this connection is not aligned and it's crooked? Let me rotate it a little bit so you can see. Now I need to go ahead and align this connection. So that connection is now aligned, slightly offset. I'm going to go ahead and wipe in opposite directions using my thumb and finger. And that's going to start to add compression and get the two sides of the clay to adequately come in contact with each other. Okay. I need to do that the whole length of the seam, inside and outside. So the outside of the seam, okay, I'm going to scoot this back a little bit. I'm going to put my hand inside the mug, and I'm going to be blending the wall up against my finger. If you just blend up against the cylinder, you see how the cylinder moves? You don't want it to move. So we're going to support the wall and start pressing that seam down, adding compression, gently, gently, right? We don't force the clay to do anything because it will fight back. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing with the inside, support the outside wall, put a finger in there, and gently add compression. If you can't reach your hand in there, that's okay, because we have tools, and tools are wonderful. So one of my favorite ceramic tools is a pencil. This one's not sharpened, but it's okay if it is. You're going to support the outside wall and use the edge of the pencil to just add some compression, okay? And you can blend. Once you've added enough compression and it's really well attached, that slab's not going anywhere, then you can start blending the seam. I need to go back and compress my other side because it's not quite as compressed as I would like. Okay, and I just pinched like this gently. I didn't squeeze pinch, I just added a tiny amount of pressure. Tiny amounts of pressure. Okay, next is making the seam disappear. We would like to eliminate that seam so we can't see it anymore. So I'm gonna, again, support the cylinder with my hand inside. I'm gonna take my credit card rib and just wipe up the edge as neat and clean and tidy as possible. Okay, and that seam has disappeared. Okay. The inside seam is still present, so I'm going to make sure my pencil is really clean using a wet sponge. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just wipe across until it feels like it's really, really well connected. Okay, now we have our cylinder. I'm going to take some time to put my hands around it and get it to go back into that cylindrical form, because I know that as I work with it, it kind of gets out of shape a little bit. So I'm going to just touch it and rotate it, and then I'm going to flip it over and touch it and rotate it and make sure that it is really well cylindrical as I can make it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. I have my piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half, and this will come in really, really handy. You can do it without this paper, but your job is going to be harder. Okay, so I'm going to take my piece of paper, fold it in half, make sure my creases are really strong. And that extra slab that we made, it's time. So we're going to bring the extra slab out. It's been sitting for a little while. It's still really pliable and moldable, right? It's still really bendy. I'm going to compress one side, gently flip, compress the other side. And now I'm going to take my cylinder, make sure the rim side, the soft rolled rim side, is facing up and the squared off base is on the bottom. And I'm going to just place it on my slab. Okay, so it's got clay all the way around. And I'm going to take my toothpick tool. I'm going to trace. I am not cutting, I'm just tracing. Gently letting my tool drag on the bottom. And even though I worked really hard to make this as cylindrical as possible, it is not a perfect cylinder. Okay, so it's not a perfect circle. So I'm going to create a V shape in the clay. So I carved myself a little V shape right here. I'm going to do a matching V on up the side of the cylinder. and the points of the V's are going to point at each other. You can't really see that, but I lift and show you. Okay, so there's my V's and they point at each other. That's going to be what's called a registration mark or a key, the registration mark or a key. And that's going to tell me where to put my cylinder back on. So I'm going to just pick up my cylinder, flip it gently, and put it upside down off to the side. And I'm going to take my scoring tool and I'm going to go ahead and score really well. If you try to go too fast on this step or you don't do it thoroughly enough, your artwork will start to come apart in the kiln. So it's really important that you slow down, take your time, do it right the first time. Otherwise, the likelihood that you have to redo your project gets very, very high. So make sure you slow down and do it right. Okay. I'm just doing the area where I think the cylinder will make contact with this bottom slab. And now I'm going to score the bottom of my cylinder. And I'm doing this video in real time because I want you to understand just how long it takes to make these things. This is not fast. All those videos you see on Instagram and YouTube, and they're sped up 4, 6, 8 times. And it really doesn't give you a sense of just how long it takes to make something out of clay. It takes a sizable amount of time. We're already 17.5 minutes in on video number 2, and the first video was 16 minutes. So we're already well into our way to a good half hour, and we're just connecting our cylinders. So we're going to take our slip now, and we're going to apply our slip to our scored surface. Okay, and remember, you dab your slip on, you don't wipe it. If you wipe it, you end up closing those score marks and smoothing them out and eliminating them. So when you dab your slip on, it allows the slip to go down into those little crevices and nooks and crannies, which is what we want. And we're going to do it to the cylinder too. Okay. Squeeze off the remaining slip back into my cup. Wash my fingers. Dry them. Now I'm going to look for my registration marks. Found it. It's right here. Found it. It's right there. Turn it a little bit sideways so I can actually see them. And I'm going to very gently set it on that area. And I'm going to check the whole perimeter of the cylinder and make sure it's lined up and I didn't accidentally squeeze it or make it an oval. Okay, so now that it's lined up and I know that the V marks are directly attached, directly with each other, I'm going to do a compression technique where I take my hands and I gently place them on the outside. I'm not squeezing. I gently place them on the outside and I use friction to force it down. I don't go straight down. I go down and wiggle. And you can kind of see it wiggle a little bit. That wiggle is very important because that wiggle will squeeze all that slip through the seams. See how the slip just squeezed and oozed out on the outside, and it squeezed and oozed out on the inside. When you have the slip squeezing and oozing, it means that it really got into those scored marks and it's made a really strong connection. So I'm good with the slip now. I'm going to take my finger and wipe up the excess and put it back in my slip cup. And this is why the paper is handy, so you can rotate it on the table. And this is when a paintbrush will come into play, because I can't fit my finger down inside that cylinder. So I'm going to use this paintbrush to wipe the slip up off those edges on the inside. I'm just going to squeeze the slip off, wipe, squeeze the slip off, wipe, squeeze, until that entire center perimeter is clean. This also helps compress it and makes a really strong connection. You don't want to push down and stab the clay, okay? You're just wiping it. Okay? Put the remaining slip back in its container, and I'm going to lid it because I won't need it for a while. And I'm going to end the video here, and we'll go ahead and start the next video in just a moment.